Waikato. Welcome to South Pacific Muscle. Hey, before we start, I just wanted to play something. Just wanted to quickly play something.
It's been 7 hours and 50.
Do you remember that song? Number one song in 1990. What a fucking long time ago.
Sinead
And
O'Connor.
1990 was the first year that you got on stage, Aaron.
Yep, it was.
So I don't know all your details other than the fact that we've been on stage together. I trained, I think I was 2 weeks out from WWF, and we trained at BTS Gym with Darren Farrow. So we bumped into each other around the ways. But do you want to let people know a bit about your details? You know, your age, your height, your weight, last time you're on stage, first shows, all those kind of things like that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently 48, and I just turned 48 like in October. I'm 6'6". I'm currently weighing just under 147 kgs. And so my last show was 2018. And my first show, as I say, was in 1990. I was a tender age of 17, and only after a year of training in the gym. So it was basically when I lived down in Wanganui, the gym owner.
Oh, you dropped out, Aaron. Your sound dropped out. Sorry, the gym owner.
Yeah, gym owner Danny Burns.
Oh, I know that name. So Danny Burns he was a powerlifter back in the day, wasn't he?
Yeah, and ex Mr. New Zealand, multi-time Mr. New Zealand too. So
Oh, wow.
he's the one who basically said, "Oh, you should do a show." So after a year of training, I sort of got onto my first show from there. So
Did you ever bump into Phil Emmett? He used to train in Danny Burns' gym. So Phil was the guy that first showed me how to lift back when I joined the gym for the very first time. So I had the experience of him, but he always mentioned Danny Burns. So
Danny had amazing physique, very, very classical 1970s style bodybuilding physique. Yeah, very good.
And was Levi? He was over that way as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. He trained with me a few times. He was skinny to start off before he sort of got into the powerlifting stuff. But so had some good times in that gym. Yeah, really good times.
Cool. And when did you make the move towards Auckland? Because you're West Auckland.
No, yeah, Central Auckland. So I moved. Geez, this is going back quite a while. Would have been mid-90s.
Yep.
And sort of just came out because I just got sick and tired of small town mentality, and as much as I loved Wanganui and my friends down there, there was no sort of growth for me as far as work. So I basically came out to Auckland for work.
What do you do for a 9 to 5?
I'm currently a national logistics manager for Mainstream. So they're a logistics and transport company in Auckland. So.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Hey, your last time was on stage 2018, but do you want to talk us through from your first show from 17 and just some of the highlights of your time when you competed?
Yeah, sure. So back in 1990, such a long time ago, first show ever, Central North Islands, back when Tom Terry was around. He was really impressed with me because I was very skinny, ripped for 17. I had shoulders way out here because I used to just train shoulders religiously. And so my first show, I came first against my best friend, Craig Bryder, and he competes in NABBA, just finally retired recently.
Oh, he hasn't retired.
He's not yet.
Craig, if you're listening, Craig, you haven't retired. You're just having a break.
Yeah. So it was basically me and him used to start off at school, and we competed together. And then we did the nationals that year, and I came second at the nationals to the smaller guy. And Craig ended up being good friends with him through Palmerston North. So, and then from there, just sort of went from there. So I caught the bug and competed many shows from there. 91 was the next show, which I came in a lot heavier. Didn't think for Wellington show, to the Wellington Classic, didn't think I was going to place at all. Came in, walked off stage, kept my stuff about ready to go. Next minute they called me up and I'm on the stage and taking first, and I was like, whoa. So yeah, in between getting up to basically 2014 is when I sort of stepped back on the stage again. Oh, actually prior to that it was with WWF when we competed together.
Yeah.
So that can't remember what
230?
year. 2013.
Yeah.
13. Yeah. So I had a long break, basically because I got really disillusioned with the sport, and for my height and my size, I needed a good few years of training to put on some decent size. So I sort of said to myself, I wouldn't step back on the stage until I was sort of ready to compete with the big boys.
Ooh, and Mike, I know you've got some questions. Because Mike, you're sitting around that 6'2" mark, and the taller guys always, it's a real interest point for how do you get that big, that sort of thing. So, Mike.
Yeah, we'll get on to some quick fire in a second, but yeah, like at 6'2", I got on stage at 102, and then a couple of years later at 107, 109. But I knew to compete with the big boys, to fill out a 6'2" frame, I'd have to be probably 125, 130 on stage. So I can only imagine you're going to need to be 140 plus sort of thing to really look the same size but scaled up, right?
Yeah, right. So when I was on stage with Nate, I weighed in at 122. And I still hadn't sort of figured out my diet program and things like that, because at the time I just started working with Mark Rainbow. And so I was just trying to get to work out how my body was going to react and everything to diet. And we sort of played around with a few things. And so I didn't come in my best condition, but then I sort of nailed it for my next shows after that.
Yeah, do you feel like as a larger bodybuilder, it's harder to kind of hit the mark right on? There's sort of more variability in the way you can come in?
I suppose it's just, it's a little bit different for everybody. But for me, I could dial it in. Like for 2018, I came in at 122 and a half, and I was peeled. I would have been about 4% body fat, and I was vascular as and striated all over the show. And I even had the guys out the back. Kurt Dowell was just really impressed with how I looked. And so, it really depends on the person and how you sort of deal with your diet, really.
Yeah, I mean, most of those sort of 14 to 16 to 20 weeks is just hard work, isn't it? But those last sort of 24 to 72 hours is pretty important to nail. And I personally have found that really tough to kind of get that right, get the carbs and the water and things right. But I can only imagine what it's like for you, sort of dealing with 120, 130 kilos.
Yeah. So, when I was sort of going through the diet with Mark, we actually upped the intake of calories because I was just getting to the point I just felt like I was starving my system. And when I sort of get into diet mode, I was just basically, my metabolism just goes through the roof. So we came into that show and I was on 3,100 calories. So that's quite high for getting into peak sort of thing. So
yeah. I think my last one I was coming in at similar to that, just under 2,700, 2,800, something like that. And I'm a lot lighter than you are, so I was probably eating too many calories.
Yeah,
all right, let's jump into some. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to get into that point again because with the bigger guys, and particularly like when you're looking at the pros, you get people making comments, he looks shit and la 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 la. But the more you've been in the game, the more you realise that last 24 hours and even that last sort of 8 hours while you're on stage is incredibly difficult to nail. And I think you've got a point, the more mass you have, the more potential you have to flatten out, to spill over and all those things. So managing that for someone of your size must be a real effort.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I did. I spilled over for that first show that I did for NABBA WFF, getting back into the game after about 7 years off, and I spilled over for the nationals. I came in at I think I was at 124, and so Leanne and the rest of the guys were just basically saying, you're just looking huge, which is good comment. But I knew from there that I was never going to place as high as I could do because my condition wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be.
Righto, quick fire, off-season. Do you dirty bulk or do you stay lean?
I have in previous years. So when I was getting back into 2015, 2016, I got up to 145 and a half. I dirty bulked. This time around, I'm clean bulk and I'm sort of tipping, getting close to 147. So, I mean, I weighed myself, it would have been a month ago at 140, just under 147.
Yeah, I imagine that if you dirty bulk from here, you'd be 155, 160, and it's a lot. That's a lot to carry around, though. That's hard work. Burning a lot of calories just moving that around,
Yeah, exactly.
Do you tend to go high protein, high fats, or high carb?
No, it's a mix. I try and get my carbs in the morning. So like I do most of my carb intake in the morning. So then I'm leading in the afternoon. I'm sort of basically doing a carb deficit, and I'm just chucking as much protein as I can. You know, I was sort of sitting around probably about 6,000 calories, per day, trying to shove into my mouth. So
yeah, that's hard. That's hard lean with clean food. You know, it's a fair amount of fucking chicken and rice right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, how many meals do you split that into?
Currently it's sitting about seven meals.
Yeah, I'm doing 7 meals a day. You've got to split it up, otherwise there's too much in every meal.
Yeah.
So with your training, off-season, volume or intensity?
I do a bit of a split. So I'll do intensity one week and I'll do volume the next.
Okay.
So it's just mainly at my age, or I should say at our age, it's harder on the joints and harder on the muscles if I'm continually pushing big weights. So
that's an interesting strategy, because we haven't heard anyone who does a mix like that. That's probably something for guys our age to have, to consider, because I mean we all still want to smash weights just like we did when we were in our 20s and 30s. But if we do that for too many weeks in a row, you just beat yourself down into the ground. So
yeah, and I learned through injuries. I basically did an adductor about would have been about a month ago, squatting 220. So it's like your body can only take so much.
Tell me that was your intensity week, not your volume week.
It was intensity week, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I love throwing around the big weights. Like I curled a couple of weeks ago 90 kgs, and I do skull crushes for 90 kgs. And flies, I'm sort of sitting around at 50 kg flies or 55 kg flies. So
it's just listen to it.
Yeah.
Mass moves mass.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But the weeks that we're doing our high volume, I'm doing 4 sets of 20 reps for each body part. So you're just walking out of the gym, your muscles are fully pumped and blasted to smithereens. So it's a good workout.
Nice.
And lastly, for the off season, I mean, this will vary between when you're dirty bulking and now you're currently staying lean. But do you do any carb cycling or mini cuts, or just keep pushing the food on a constant basis to keep that insulin sensitivity?
No, I just try and keep the food as much as I can sort of push into my system without sort of blowing out. So I'm conscious at my age of blowing out the stomach. That's always been a big thing in the past. I've sort of just tried to put much food in the system and then just blow out. So I'm just trying to keep it, whereas I'm just getting enough carbs to keep me going through to feed the muscles and that. But then try and go for more lean protein throughout the day, and then just have a normal meal at night. So I'm not sort of being totally religious to a bodybuilder's diet as such. I'm trying to keep a good balance throughout the week.
Right, and now into pre-competition. Do you tend to cut hard and fast, or do you come in slow?
I used to, when I was younger, cut hard and fast. I'd do like a 10 to 11 week diet. Because off season I'd be 10% body fat anyway. So now a bit older, I'm certainly not 10% body fat. But no, so I'll take a long and steady approach to it. So then I'm not sacrificing much muscle tissue as far as muscle loss when you go through the diet phase, and it's better for the body in the long term. I got to think about health in the long term.
Yeah, on that, just going to jump in on that, Mike, because that's an area that really has kind of sprung to light. Like after having a layoff for 5 or 6 years, coming back, there's a huge focus on health and well-being, and particularly for guys at our age, you've got all our blood markers that get out of whack pretty quickly. What kind of things are you doing in your diet, etc., to manage your health?
I eat a shit ton of fruit. So like I'm having... I have 4 bananas a day. I'll have an orange, an apple. I'm having multivitamins, the whole works, just to keep the system going. And that's key. Some of the people I've sort of helped on diets and things like that is just adding a lot more fruit into the diet to keep the system flowing, which is quite essential. If you're not doing the dailies, you get a bit stuffed up.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry,
yeah, I know when I was when I dieted back in the 90s, I came down 22 kilos in 11 weeks. And that was all I wanted to diet for. Short diet phase. As soon as the diet was over, I was pizza and ice cream again. And it was back to dirty bulking. Now that I'm a bit older, I'm a bit less intense with it. I'm not so stressed about dieting for a bit longer. I don't go crazy when my diet finishes. And that's not because I'm restricting myself or restraining myself. I'm just a bit more moderate in everything I do now.
Yep.
And I imagine it sounds like it's kind of the same yourself. You have longer diet phase, more sort of even keel coming in, and probably less crazy when you finish.
Yeah, yes, it's a little bit more calculated. So like I've done the hard and fast diets, and you just end up stringy at the end of it. Whereas this time around, just learning what my body can actually do and what I can do diet wise is just taking it easy. So I'd rather take the long approach to it, and then at the end of it, not go hard out and pig out in 16 pizzas and ice cream and all the rest of that. It's just get back into it gradually. That's I suppose the balance I try and find.
And so when you're looking to tweak things during your diet phase, is your first go to cutting food or doing more cardio?
No, probably just altering food. So not really cutting out too much food. It's more about altering, I suppose, some of the carbs. So take quite a bit of the carbs out and cycle that through with protein.
Okay, so you substitute. So keep the calories pretty consistent and substitute your carbs and protein. Interesting. And leading into the show, do you try and keep the intensity up, keep the weights up, or do you sort of go to more volume training?
No, just always hardcore. I'm old school. A lot of guys, even young guys, don't want to train with me because I'm still pretty hardcore in the gym. So I'm pushing the big weights, and even Mark, when I was training with him out west, he was just impressed with some of the weights I was sort of pushing for a guy who's 3 weeks out from a diet sort of thing.
I remember in my head it was, if I can still hit my numbers, then I haven't lost any muscle. I was desperate to kind of keep hitting the numbers right the way through the diet phase. Yeah, so that's it for the quick fire. You clearly put on a lot of muscle at some stage. Did you find that you were always big when you were young? Did you find that you put on muscle quite quickly and easily, or is it in a sort of long, slow, hard grind to kind of get to the size you are now?
No, it was, I suppose genetically I was quite gifted, luckily. Like at age 13, I had a mustache that was better than the teachers at school. So I suppose, like I've had high testosterone rate, through all my life, basically from when I was 10, right through to now. So I've been quite lucky, and unfortunately, you get the old acne from the high test. So yeah, and I grew quite quickly when I was younger, so that was a bonus to me. And then sort of just later in my life, when I got into my 30s, that's when I sort of found I put more muscle on, because you had that muscle memory, you have the longevity being in the gym versus being younger, and you got all this testosterone to go flying around your body, and you don't know what to do with it. So yeah, and I actually put on more weight in my 40s than I ever did in my 30s. So that was just through the years of training. So.
Cool. Hey, one of the things you talked about was working with Mark Rainbow. Are you working with a coach now, or are you working on your own?
No, I work on my own. The only time I sort of work with a coach is when I come up to competition time. So I like to separate out, the nutrition aspect of it, and I can focus directly on the training. So I could do the nutrition side myself, but it's just, to me, it's just like I separate that. I go, okay, compartmentalize that and do this over here, and then all I can focus on is just the goal at hand, which is getting as lean as possible, as big as possible.
Yeah, man, contract that shit out. It's not core business. We're here to train.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough to make. Yeah, pretty tough to make kind of rational decisions about your own diet when you can't deplete it.
Yeah.
Right. Should we have a squiz at your Insta? Because I've got some interesting photos here. I'll scroll back a bit and saw a few when you competed as a natty back in Inver, God knows how long ago. But you can sort of talk us through some of those photos.
Sure.
Yeah. So you say you just use a coach during the pre-competition phase. Do you find that it takes them a while to kind of get to know your body, or do you work with the same coach each time? I mean, how does it work for you?
Yeah, sort of. I've worked with Mark through all my competing years when I got back into bodybuilding. And the first one was a little bit hard because, he was just trying to see what my metabolism, what my body was doing. And then from there, we were able to tweak things along the way. So it's just, I'd rather stick with one person than sort of jump in between, different coaches, because, one coach is going to know what you like, and versus having somebody in all the time.
It must be interesting for a coach to get an athlete like you, because, I mean, you get a bunch of guys like my size, 5'9", 5'10", and 100-odd kilos, dime a dozen, but to get someone who's 6'6" and sitting with 140 plus kilos of mass on their frame must only come around every now and then. So
yeah,
bit of an enigma.
Yeah. And as I say, like I know I'm way outside the realm of a perfect bodybuilder. So that's just, you just take it as it comes. Just like I'm out there for more for the fun aspect and doing what I do for my enjoyment. And ideally, yeah, you want the big prize at the end of it, but I know competing against a guy who's 5'6", I'm the one who's going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Hey, look, guys, if you want to follow possibly the biggest, heaviest bodybuilder in New Zealand, Bigger Beast is his page here. So Reactive Supplements sponsor there. So shout out to Reactive Supplements. And I see a little point there, a beast in the gym, but an all-round nice guy. Now, I'm going to go somewhere. You've got to hear me out of this before you decide you want to choke me out. Back when we were competing and you were training and you were going up against Darren Farrow, I remember thinking, fuck, this guy's cocky and he's arrogant. But, as I've got older, I've realised that you actually need to have that level of self-belief in what you're trying to achieve if you're going to beat a top bodybuilder. So I just thought I'd love to hear your thoughts on attitude towards training.
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it's cocky, because I could turn around and say the same thing about you at the time, because you were focused on what you're doing. So, yeah, I'm the sort of guy that goes in the gym and I'd help out many people as I can. Because I say it's just experience, and then I like to see people grow. But I'm a bit of a character when it comes to the gym. I like to have a bit of fun and be a bit cocky, throw little one-liners and things like that. Either people like it or they don't. It's as simple as that.
No, I think in retrospect, I do remember some of the little digs. Actually, it was fucking funny at the time. But I think, like I've seen that attitude with other guys, and as I've got older, I've realised it's, if you haven't got that attitude and that determined and self-belief, you're actually never going to reach your potential. So, it was a positive thing that I sort of probably misconstrued at the time. And, I guess I've learnt from that to perhaps take on a bit of that myself. So let's have a look at some of your pictures. And you got some goodies. Right, when it comes up.
Yeah, good old Josh.
Yeah, you don't look too outsized. I know Josh is a phenomenal athlete, but there's not too many guys that can stand. I'd hate to be standing next to him with his arm on my shoulder.
Yeah, it certainly was an impressive sight to meet in the flesh. He's a large dude, and a really nice guy as well.
Hell of a nice guy. Absolutely agree with you there. Right, my page is being a bit slow today. Here we go. Craig Bryder and yourself.
Yep.
So what year was this, roughly?
This was 1990. So this is the first ever time I came to Auckland for the NZFBB Nationals. Back then it was the NZFBB Nationals. So yeah, me and Craig both went to the show together, and I always thought he was going to beat me because he had a very classical Arnold shape, the big chest, the arms, everything like that. But I thought one reason why I probably beat him over that was the fact that I had the cut, so I was super ripped.
I'm not sure if I'm more impressed by the physiques or the crazy wear pants you're wearing. I still love that shit.
That was the 90s, man. The 90s.
Weren't the 90s had the best bodybuilding clothes, and I still kind of wear shit like that when I can get away with it. Tank tops and fucking big pants.
Yep.
Gold. Right. Moving forward a bit here. Where are we? Right. Imba. What?
So that year was actually a bit of a weird year for me. I was creatine loading at the time, and of course you shouldn't really creatine load when you're actually coming into diet because it basically builds up in your system. So 3 weeks out from the show, I ended up in hospital getting put onto a drip because I basically had stomach pains that felt like somebody actually was stabbing me in the stomach with a knife. So my condition was way out for that show, and I think I came in fourth for it. And the big guy clearly was not natural. He's the one who took out the show. So
yeah. So there's a word of warning for people when you're coming and loading and your body's in that sort of fragile state. Just be careful with your supplements, and creatine in particular.
Yep, definitely.
"20-year-old with the Hawleys poster in the background."
Yeah, so that was the biggest and heaviest I've been as a junior. So that night, turned 21, went down to the Rock Gardens, which was changed to the waterfront bar later on, and celebrated my birthday and everything like that. So it was a really good year. I tried something different. Went into it diet-wise by chucking as much carbs and shit food into me the night before.
How did that work out?
It actually worked out quite well, because what I did was I did a whole heap of posing like I'd actually been at a show the night before.
Yep.
Before I stuffed all this food in my mouth, and came up looking a lot bigger and fuller, and it's all, vascular and ripped. So it was just a trial that I was doing. I thought, oh well, might as well give it a go, and just try something different. Just always the day after the show, you're looking the best you ever have, and you go, oh bloody hell. So
what show was that? Like what federation, etc. was that?
That was IFBB. That was NZFBB.
Back in the day. And it looks like that massive protein in the background. Something.
Yeah, that bad stuff.
On stage, looks like you got Denver and Tom. Was that Daniel there?
Yep, that's Hibbs.
All right, that's a bit of a lineup, isn't it?
It was.
Yeah. And, some very different physiques there. Who won that year? Was that Denver's year, or was
No, that was
Tom's
year?
Tom's year.
Yeah, Tom's year. So no, he looked really good. Daniel Hibbs was just amazing. He's ultra ripped. Just amazing physique, that guy. And Denver, I think he stuffed up on his diet and things like that. He just wasn't as good as he has looked in the previous years. So.
No, you look good next to Tom there, and as you say, Daniel Hibbs, he's got to be one of our giant killers. If you're talking
Definitely.
about New Zealand giant killers, he would figure right in that mix.
Yep.
There it is, one pro card that you had
One
for
pro card.
Very short time, and I read the post.
Yeah, I should have actually stayed with NABA WFF. Those guys are, as you know, they put on really good shows. They're a really good crew. They support support their athletes. And in hindsight, I probably should have not accepted it and just gone for the nationals, because I was trying to get my third Mr. New Zealand Masters Men champion. And they just basically stuffed it up for me. So it is what it is. But I'd love to be able to get the opportunity to get it back. So see what 2021 brings.
Yeah. Big shout out to Alex and Leanne and the team
definitely.
that run that. As you say, fantastic support for their athletes. So 218. So this will be your second to last show you were on stage?
Yeah, so this was the Waikato. So I took out the Masters Men, the over 100 kg class, and the full. So I was super stoked with that. Very, very close to my good friend Sean Steiner, Ginger Shred Man, Gingy. Yeah, Gingy.
Shout out to Sean. I competed with Sean a couple of times. So, that's awesome.
Yeah, all the shows that I've gone against, he's been in the shows, and me and him have a really good friendship. In fact, Luke, he's also he's a good friend of mine at the gym. It was a good lineup that year actually.
Yeah, it's always cool to win a show. It doesn't matter what show it is. When you get the overall of a show, you kind of have a real special memory about it, I guess.
Definitely.
Haven't done it often enough. So maybe we all better get on stage a few more times. Right, and the last one, here you go. Look at that. Nationals 218, I think.
Yeah, so that one there, I come down, I was sitting at 122.5 and very vascular, very ripped. I had a lot of comments from the guys at the back, and even Paris was impressed with my leg size and that, so it was a good show. Really, really impressed with the package I brought. And getting a lot of good feedback. Unfortunately, I didn't place in the over 100 kg class, but obviously third Masters Men Championship, so that was always good.
I've got to say, you look absolutely phenomenal. You look like a bodybuilder should look, so you must have had Paris and Denver.
Yep, Denver took the show out.
Oh, Denver, okay, yep. So it's a pretty tough lineup, with Denver obviously going on to be a pro, and he's looking pretty crazy at the moment. And Paris, well, we know what Paris looks like. So because that physique there, most shows would walk away with a class. So I guess it's saying something for the caliber of that show. But you look absolutely top notch, mate. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Yes,
it was one that I was most pleased with the way it came out. I think everything just fell into place for the show, and it was about proving a point. I wanted to prove a point to myself and to the federation that I can come in looking, as good as I want to be, and it just fell into place. So I'm not pissy about the show, because as I say, it was just one of those things. Bodybuilding is such a subjective sport that we do anyway. So what looks good one year is going to look different the next year, and that's just what it is. So at the end of the day, I was the way I looked and how I came into the show. So
and that's all you can be. The judges they score what they see, and to come away and look at a photo like that, you did a fucking good job. So
yep.
Yeah, well done. Right, I think it's probably sort of time for us to hand over to you to do a bit of a shout out to, those people that you want to have a shout out to, anyone that supported you along the way, any training partners, friends, sponsors, things like that you want to have a bit of a shout out to.
Yeah, sure. Well, first thing, as I say, I always have Mark Rainbow in my corner. He's a really good guy, sort of top-notch dude as far as helping me out and things like that. With nutrition, my wife and kids who support me as far as they're my backbone to supporting me at home and making sure that I'm mentally cleared and prepared for shows and things like that. And I got Nick Koenigs, who actually competed in NABA back when I was competing in 2015, I think it was. So he's my training partner with another young guy called Zach. So we sort of smashed the weights together.
Nice.
And I suppose there's a lot of other people sort of follow me and etc. like that, which is always good having people who follow you and I suppose look up to you as far as inspiration.
We all look up to you because you're 6'6". Giant amongst men.
Yeah, and that's the key thing I like it about. Is I like inspiring people to get out there and do things. And as I say, I'll go out of my way to help people as much as I can. And that's what I'm about, just only having fun and helping people.
Nice. Love it. Great attitude, man. Great attitude. Mike, is there anything you want to...
No, I've just got one little shout out that we talked about. I want to shout out Harry Booth. He contacted me today and he's coming down for a train, getting a free pass at Olympic Gym to come have a train with me and Josh just before Christmas. So looking forward to having a pushes of tin with you, Harry, when we meet up before Christmas.
Are you extending the invite to Aaron if he ever turns up in Dunedin?
No, I could load your plates for you.
Rightio. Hey, whereabouts are you training anyway at the moment?
I'm training at City Fitness in Newmarket. It's probably about the only decent gym. Like back at the time when we were training, I originally was going to look at buying BTS.
Yep.
So that's one of my aspirations to have my own gym. So unfortunately that didn't fall into place. In fact, I was actually quite lucky. I sort of avoided a bit of a time bomb on that place. Much it was good for hardcore training. Yeah. There's a lot of issues around the site and things like that. So one day it'll happen.
Right. Well, I'm heading up to Auckland tomorrow, so if I've got any spare time, I'll give you
definitely give me a holler.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It depends where I end up staying to where I end up training, but I'll be in touch. So thank you very much for coming on tonight. Really cool to catch up with you again, man.
No, it's good.
Been
Yeah.
way too long between drinks. And
we have to bring out those legs again for the shows.
Look,
Remember the leg battle on stage?
yeah, and mine are after hearing
Yeah,
them.
not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now, mate.
Yeah, mine are terrible.
No. Yeah.
I tore both quad tendons clean off the patellas, so I couldn't walk for 3 months. And as much as the strength come back, the shape, that kind of sweep that I had, just not there yet. But that's it. I've been in deficit for a long time, so once I get onto that, I'm going to have a good 6 months bulking. I should be able to get some size back on them, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But at the moment, I'm wearing board shorts. Right. Hey, again, thank you very much. And to all our viewers,
Thanks, Aaron.
good seeing you.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.